The United States Supreme Court got bought by the corporations. And it went out and changed our laws, rewrote them to say that corporations are human beings. Now, I have a 6-year-old daughter out working this crowd. She knows that a corporation is not a human being, but John Roberts isn't that smart. But I will tell you, we have with us today one of the smartest people in the country, certified by the MacArthur Foundation as a genius. But he is also a people's lawyer, one of the great strugglers for peace and economic and social justice in this country. A lawyer who's fought voting rights battles, who's fought constitutional battles at every turn, and a hero of mine because before I wrote a book saying that Bush should be impeached, he wrote a book saying that Bush should be impeached. He is a terrific friend and a terrific ally. He's one of the authors of the movement to pass a constitutional amendment to restore the full rights of citizens in this republic and to say that our elections belong to the people, not to corporations. Please welcome John Bonifaz.
Thank you, John Nichols. Thank you for that kind introduction. John Nichols has been a fighting force for democracy and justice across this country, and I'm honored to stand with him. Hello, Fighting Bobfest! Hello, Fighting Bonifaz! Hello, Fighting Bonifaz! Are you ready to reclaim our democracy? Are you ready to restore our Constitution? Are you ready to take back America from the corporate rulers? Do you have your signs, your PDA signs? Corporations are not people. Are you ready to demand that we the people rule, not we the corporations? Hold up your signs! Show them! Show them! I want to thank Ed Garvey for his vision and his leadership in building Fighting Bobfest. I want to thank him for all that he's done to bring us to this point. Now, you saw Ed tumble a little bit here. My father has always taught me that when they knock you down, you come right back up again. And Ed's been coming right back up again, and we're going to come right back up again with him, standing up and fighting back. Thank you, Ed Garvey, and thank you to everyone who's organized Fighting Bobfest. Now, I know people have talked about this ruling already today, but I just want to lay it out very clearly. In January this year, the United States Supreme Court swept away a century of precedent that had barred corporate expenditures in our elections. It equated corporations with people, with political speech rights, with the ability to spend unlimited amounts of money from their general treasury funds in our elections. This ruling marks a direct and serious threat to our democracy and to our Constitution, and it shall not be the last word. For more than 100 years, this nation has recognized that corporations shall not be able to spend their money in our elections for more than 100 years. And on the day of this ruling, Voter Action, where I am based, along with other public interest organizations, Public Citizen, U.S. PIRG, the Center for Corporate Policy, the American Independent Business Alliance, we all joined together and launched the Free Speech for People campaign to say that we the people rule, not we the corporations, and that the First Amendment is designed to protect people, not corporations. We launched this campaign at freespeechforpeople.org, seeking an amendment to the Constitution to make clear that corporations have no place in our elections and that free speech rights are for we the people, not corporations. Join us at freespeechforpeople.org. Now just imagine for a moment if this ruling had been in place in the 2008 election. We had a problem prior to this ruling with campaign finance. We know that. We had a problem. And we had over $5 billion of money spent in the 2008 election by all the campaigns combined. Presidential campaigns, Obama, McCain, the congressional campaigns. All the campaigns combined, the political parties, the PACs. $5 billion, an awful lot of money and far too much for our election process. But imagine this. In 2008 alone, the top Fortune 100 companies made $600 billion in profits. $600 billion in profits by just the top Fortune 100 companies. If they had been able to spend just 2% of those profits in our elections, they would have more than doubled all the money spent by all the campaigns combined, presidential, congressional, the PACs, the parties. That's the threat that we now face with our elections. This Supreme Court, a 5-justice majority, mind you, has opened the door, the floodgates, to unleashing corporate money in our elections. We must stand up and say no. We must stand up and say we fight back and reclaim our democracy. Corporations, we know, are not people. They do not breathe. They do not think. They do not have a conscience. In fact, they have state-based advantages that you and I, as human beings, do not have. Limited liability, perpetual life, the ability to aggregate wealth and distribute wealth. And for this reason, the framers understood that corporations had to be reined in. James Madison spoke of corporations as a necessary evil, subject to proper limitations and guards. Thomas Jefferson sought to crush in its birth the aristocracy of our moneyed corporations. They understood the threat that corporations could pose to society, and they had no interest in providing corporations with the rights that we the people have. And for 2 centuries, our courts in this country recognize that corporations have no place in the First Amendment and do not have any kind of free speech rights. And then, in 1971, Lewis Powell, a private attorney, then at the time working for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, wrote a memorandum for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce about how corporate America could advance its agenda using the First Amendment, misusing, in our view. And he eventually became, as you know, Justice Lewis Powell, nominated by then President Nixon and appointed to the Supreme Court. And he became an architect of what is now a corporate rights doctrine under the First Amendment. For the past 30 years, this doctrine has been used, misused, by corporate America to strike down environmental laws, healthcare laws, consumer rights, civil rights, and yes, campaign finance. It would be a mistake to view the Citizens United ruling solely through the lens of campaign finance. This is an extreme extension of a corporate rights doctrine that has eroded the First Amendment for the past 30 years. We must take back the First Amendment and free speech and fair elections for the people, and that's why we must use the amendment process to demand that we the people rule. I want to just give one example of how this doctrine, prior to this ruling, has been used. You know, Monsanto, in the 1990s, developed a drug, the bovine growth hormone drug, that it claimed would increase production of milk, increase efficiency of milk production. There's only one problem. The drug was highly carcinogenic. causing cancers in humans and in animals. And it was banned in large parts of the world, in Australia and parts of Europe. And I know there was a fight here in Wisconsin around it. But the state of Vermont, all they sought to do was label products coming from dairies using this drug. Label them so that people could make a choice whether they wanted to buy milk from a dairy using this drug or buy milk from an organic dairy not using the drug. They wanted to be able to provide people the information so people can make a choice. The Industrial Dairy Association went into court using this doctrine, this corporate rights doctrine. It claimed that they had the right as corporations not to put these labels on their products, that they had free speech rights that were at stake. And they won. The federal court struck down that law. Corporations did not have to put these labels on their products. So now we've taken the First Amendment and turned it on its head. It's supposed to be designed to protect we the people and our free speech rights and protect us and if we don't want to have to say something the government tells us to say. And now we've turned it on its head and designed it so that corporations can hide critical information from us designed to protect human health. That's not right. That's not what free speech is about. That's not what the framers intended. And we've got to fight back and demand that we the people rule. It is also true. It is also true to my friends with Move to Amend here that the corporations have claimed these kinds of political rights since an 1886 ruling, Santa Clara, that was wrong to have stated that. And I fully agree. We've got to take on all of corporate personhood. But the fact is that today, where this fight is happening is under the free speech argument. That's where corporations are trying to drive their agenda. And that's why we've demanded at freespeechforpeople.org a 28th Amendment to the Constitution. Now we have this amendment process for this very reason. For this very reason, to ensure that we the people govern. And when there's an egregious Supreme Court ruling in our nation's history, we've responded with an amendment process. This court's ruling demands an amendment response. We have amended the Constitution repeatedly since the Civil War to expand rather than dilute democratic participation of people in elections. And most of the 17 amendments that followed the 10 amendments of our Bill of Rights were adopted to expand democracy and to eliminate barriers to democracy for everyone. We have the power to use this process again, and we must, if we're going to reclaim our Constitution and our democracy. I urge you to join us at freespeechforpeople.org, and there are Move to Amend volunteers circulating throughout this Bob Fest, urging you to sign a petition if you're a Madison resident to put it on the ballot that corporations are not people, that money does not equal speech. I urge you to sign that petition and help us stand up and take back our Constitution and our democracy. Now I want to close with the story of Doris Haddock, Granny D. Now, there are people, maybe not here, who are going to say, well, we can't amend the Constitution. We don't do that anymore. That's too difficult. That's impossible. My answer is, let's talk about Granny D. Let's talk about Granny D. At the age of 89, as you know, she made a decision to march across the country to overhaul our nation's campaign finance system. She set out from California, marching 10 miles a day. She didn't have a grand plan as to where she was going to be housed, where she was going to be fed. People came out of their homes. They fed her. They housed her. They walked with her. She cross-country skied through places. She marched through the wind, through the rain, through the snow. She turned 90 in the process, 14 months later, 3,200 miles later, she made it to Washington, D.C. at the age of 90. Granny D. She was an inspiration in that march to people all over this country and all over this world who wrote to her. Thousands of people from all over the world inspired by this story of this woman who marched across the country to take back her democracy. I had the honor to know Granny D, and I know she came here to Fighting Bonifaz and wanted to be here again. I had the honor to know her and to work with her. And she turned 100 this year, and then, as many of you know, passed away in March. And when she passed away, I thought about the fact that when she was born, the 19th Amendment guaranteeing women the right to vote had not yet been enacted into the Constitution. She saw in her lifetime 9 amendments passed by the United States Congress and ratified by the states. She is an example that change can happen, including constitutional amendments, in our lifetime if we stand up and if we fight back. In the name of Granny D, in the name of Granny D, the time has come for a 28th Amendment to restore our democracy and our Constitution. Stand up, fight back, reclaim our democracy. Thank you.